Does the phrase strategic planning send you running for the hills? Bear with me. I know that many of you are entrepreneurs like me who have squirrel brain, all of the good idea fairies, and hate to be tied down to anything that's too rigid in our business because we are the visionaries. However, on this episode of the Brand Gravity Show, I'm having an incredible conversation about how to find creative within the constraints and to get some really sexy results. Welcome to the Brand Gravity Show, where we explore the intersection between branding and psychology. I'm your host, Kaye Putnam, psychology-driven brand strategist. And I have the distinct pleasure and great fortune to have a conversation with Staci Hauschild, who is an integrator that works with visionaries like myself who need help reining in all of their good ideas. And we go deep into how this can benefit your business, what kind of results you can expect, and what happens when you commit to strategic planning in your business. Staci Hauschild is a director of operations and ClickUp consultant. She helps feminist entrepreneurs smash the patriarchy via strategic planning and business management so CEOs can create positive change in the world, increase their profits, and take real business-free vacations. Staci has lived all over the world and now calls Oaxaca, Mexico home, where she lives with her 2 rescue pups and a sassy Siamese cat. She enjoys hiking, collecting rare tropical plants and cacti, and believes that every day should start with a strong cup of coffee and a good book. Let's get into it. Staci, I am so thrilled to have this conversation about strategic planning today. For those of you who haven't had the pleasure, or for our listeners who haven't had the pleasure, can you give us a quick background of your story so far?
Sure. So I am a director of operations who specializes in strategic planning and online business management. And I am what I like to call an accidental entrepreneur. I came to Oaxaca, Mexico 7 years ago and decided to stay here, even though I was only planning on being here for 3 months to visit a friend. And I completely had to reinvent myself. So I took what I like to call my 3D background, like in the non-digital world, and I put that into the online space. And I started out like I think a lot of operators do as a virtual assistant. But even as a virtual assistant, I was thinking strategically, because if you look at all the personality tests, strategic thinking and leadership and bringing those hard conversations to the table are what I've been doing since birth. So even as a virtual assistant, I was strategically planning with my clients. I just didn't know that that was a thing. And then a year and a half ago at this point, I went through the certification program with Natalie Gingrich at the Ops Authority. And that really helped me realize that, I've been doing this all along, but here's how I can bring it to people in a more formal capacity. And it has been absolutely amazing, not just for myself, but for my clients as well.
I was lovingly stalking you on your website prior to this call. And I love that you have all of your personality test results on your about page. I'm like, this is brilliant. I am such an aficionado for personality tests, and it gave me such an insight into who you are.
Well, what I hope that also, I hope that I do that for 2 reasons. Number one is that it's incredibly important if I come into somebody's business on a long-term retainer, it's incredibly important that we have complementary skill sets. So a lot of people will say, I want a second Kaye. And I'm like, no, you don't. You do not want a duplicate of yourself. You want somebody who has complementary skills. And so I want them to see how I literally operate, is what it says, but also to prompt people to say, maybe I should learn more about myself and what my inherent strengths are too. And subconsciously or whatever, they go down the rabbit hole of personality tests and learn more about themselves as well.
So important. Okay, let's dive straight into the meat. I have so many like personal questions for you, so maybe we'll get to those later about moving to Mexico and all of those things, but I want to get right to the heart of it. What becomes possible when an entrepreneur invests time, energy, maybe money into strategic planning?
Clarity, direction, and a plan. And that's three simple words to say what we are doing are taking your 567 sticky notes or notes on your phone or a voice message that you sent to yourself while you were out walking the dog, or all of your a gazillion ideas and putting them into one place, prioritizing them, eliminating the stuff that isn't such a good idea anymore, and then deciding what's the most important, when we're going to do it, and who's going to own it. And that is incredibly important because for entrepreneurs who have a no team member wants to show up to a meeting with the CEO, like holding the computer up to the wall and saying, here's my butcher block paper of ideas of what I want to do in the next 2 weeks. And that I've been on teams like that. It doesn't feel good. And what I've also seen happen is I sound like I'm trash talking visionaries, and that's not true. My job wouldn't exist without visionaries. Visionaries give people like me jobs. And without the two working together, I honestly think businesses suffer. When visionaries have a lot of ideas, they can cause what I've heard coined this term, organizational whiplash, and lack of confidence in their teams because we get really excited about doing this thing. And then a month later, we change our focus, even though this really good thing from a month ago isn't finished yet. And so what I like to help visionaries do is slow down to speed up. It's very cliche, and we can tackle strategic planning in a way that doesn't stifle the creativity of visionaries. And I think that's important because what I want people to know is, okay, this is what you're going to be focusing on. And you don't have to worry about those other things if you delegate it to somebody else on your team or hire a short-term contractor or whatever it's going to be.
Do you need to have a team to benefit from strategic planning?
Absolutely not. I wish I would have had a strategic plan when I first started because I was going down the rabbit hole of learning so much and I didn't know what to implement, when, or if I even needed to implement that. Right. And so I have done strategic planning with, 7-figure businesses who have employees and contractors. I have had successful strategic planning sessions with people who only have a couple of contractors and those who are solopreneurs. And I think anybody can benefit. The difference is that if somebody has employees, we're going to spend some time talking about company culture. Company culture is completely different from having a team and hiring. And so I come from one of the things I like to incorporate into strategic planning are feminist values and DEI. So for example, if you have a team, you may have always been thinking, I'd really like to send my team through diversity and inclusivity training.
Yeah.
When are we going to do that? If you are a small team with only a couple contractors or a solopreneur, that doesn't even go in the parking lot. That goes so far from even us thinking about, yes, of course you want to be doing that, but you're not there yet. And that is the importance of strategic planning, is realizing what you can do and when you can do it.
I know I'm resonating very deeply with everything that you're saying. There's a million ideas in my brain at any given moment. And the sense of overwhelm can be very real. And it can feel like you're not really accomplishing anything because you're jumping from task to task to task or idea to idea. How in the world do you prioritize? What does that look like? How do you decide?
So we have a group of strategic objectives, or what I like to call the pillars of your business. And we dump every idea or project that you have into those objectives. So we get them out of your head. But then we go backwards and we look at what is your mission, what is your vision, and what are your revenue goals? And I like to look at revenue goals on good, better, and best. And a lot of times people will pull these good, better, and best revenue goals out of thin air. So I have to say, okay, how did you come to these numbers? And that sometimes ends up being the very first project, is figuring out what are the actual revenue and profit numbers that they need to hit. Because a lot of people will think about revenue, but I like to focus on profit. And if you need X amount of dollars for the next year, and then even if we're thinking about the next 3 to 5, whatever timeline doesn't make people freak out, because small businesses, a quarter seems like a lifetime sometimes, right? We look at that and then we figure out, okay, based on these revenue and profit goals, what are the actual projects in your business that you need to do versus what do you want to do? And what is such a good idea? And my goodness, we would all love to do this, but we just cannot put this even in the next year. And that's okay. And that also takes the weight off of all those ideas in your head, right? And we just put them in the plan, and then you don't have to carry them around in your brain space anymore. And so to answer your question, what we're looking at is revenue goals based on actual data, and then the objectives, the projects in the business that we need to implement in order to bring us to our revenue goals and our vision.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I wish I would have looked up the pronunciation, and I can't even remember the exact spelling, and I'm going to butcher it. But I was literally just reading an article yesterday about a psychological study that they did. I think it was called the Zygwag effect, where when you have those unfinished ideas in your brain, it literally creates mental drag against your productivity. So even if you're working on the right things, just the act of not having that plan, not getting those things out of your brain is like pulling you back. It's acting like a big sail behind your progress and your momentum. So this is so incredibly important to do. And I love the other thing that I'm hearing from you is that I always preach that people need to build their brand on truth and not trends, not by looking outside of themselves. So what I'm hearing from you is that you're really going back to what is important to the entrepreneur in front of me. What is this business that they uniquely are trying to build, and how can we fit the plan to that person? Do you have any stories from clients that highlight what's possible after this initial planning process?
The one that comes to my mind is really funny because she was just on a podcast and she told this story. So I'm going to try to repeat her story, but I will probably butcher it. And what she said is, so the podcast interviewer said, "What's next for you?" And she said, "Well, I just worked with somebody to create a strategic plan." And what she kept telling me and going back is saying, "That's not a vision. That's not a vision. That's not a vision." And I can tell when people have a vision because I usually get tears in my eyes because I can visualize it. I'm very candid, but I come from a very loving place. And I can imagine, I don't remember how many times, but I sent her back and I was like, this is not a vision. This is not a vision. This is like an idea, right? And what she said is, I have a vision for my life, for my family, and for my business. And we have some lofty goals in there, but they all seem manageable now for the first time, because we have put them into quarters and months that I don't have to think about what it is I need to do, in October. It's laid out for me. Oh, and big surprise, probably everything you said you wanted to do in October isn't going to happen. That doesn't mean your strategic plan is a failure. That means we take that drop-down menu and move it to November. It doesn't mean it gets ditched. It doesn't mean it was a bad idea. It doesn't mean that you're a failure and you didn't work 3 million hours in the month. It means that we identified some things. 2 of them took longer. Okay, we move one down. And she said, I just feel so much more relaxed and capable, and that my business is possible for the first time. And for me, especially working with feminist entrepreneurs who want to create positive change, this is a person who has in her strategic plan, I need to make this much money because I want my business to be donating X percentage to this cause that I care about. And for me, that like makes my heart sing.
Yes. Talk to me more about this process. So you mentioned that it's like the goosebumps emotion in your body that tells you that something is a vision. How do you get to a vision?
I start out by giving my clients a set of prompts. Real boring, real dry, but I think sometimes if I ask them like this, it puts them on the spot. And so I give them a set of prompts, one for their business, one for their life. I ask them to take those prompts and write it in the present tense and identify a time frame that doesn't seem scary for for everybody's different. And then they send that to me and I poke holes in it and I dig into it and I say, so you said that you want to travel more with your family. What does that mean to you? Do you want to travel? Like, do you want to like sell your house and be a digital nomad? Oh, no, I don't want to do that. I'd like to take 2 vacations a year. Okay, how long do are those vacations going to be? How much are those vacations going to cost? Is one going to be in the States? Is one going to be international? Like, and I take those sentences and I just lovingly break them apart and get as detailed as possible. And in the end, some people will say, you know what, I want to go here and I want to go here. And that means that then I need to set up my business structure so that when I am, in Bali, I'm not working on my business. And it just encourages people to start thinking about getting really, really specific and creating. I really believe a vision could be painted, like on a wall or on a mood board or something. But it also then needs to be implemented with timelines and deadlines because I wouldn't be an operator without that, right?
Exactly. Exactly. What is your current vision for your business?
Oh my God. Okay, this is hilarious because I hate this question because I am an operator. My biggest strength is taking someone's vision and implementing it. My current vision, I just moved into a new home. I have currently been living in tiny homes. And so I just moved into a home that has a separate studio that I want to turn into an Airbnb. But the size of my home, the 2 bedrooms are the size of the place I used to live in. And so that is like, I want to decorate this place that is like the boho, eclectic, colorful style that I have. And I want to buy art from artisans and support those local businesses. I want to support their craft. Yes, I bought some pots and pans from Amazon. But when it comes to like furnishing my house, I want to practice what I preach. And buying a piece of art from an artist has to go into my own revenue goals. And I was just talking about this with my CFO yesterday. And I was like, okay, here are my investment goals, here are my profit goals, here are my savings goals. But now that I live in this house, I want to think about how I'm going to make this my home and start Airbnb-ing it and, things like that. In terms of, and it's really funny because I don't have these vision. I spent 20 years traveling, and that's what got me into Oaxaca. So I don't have the travel vision right now. My entire vision is to take this place and turn it into a home that I never want to leave and have amazing staycations and things like that, But I also, where I live, there is a huge stray animal problem. And I has previously been donating to large organizations. And what I want to do is start working with local vets and animal rescue organizations and support them here. And so that people know that, okay, when you hire me to strategic plan, a percentage of profit is going to go into these organizations because I know them. And that to me is really special. And in terms of my business, I'm not 100% sure. I have always been a retainer in clients' businesses, but I am considering this idea of how can I help more people with strategic planning by maybe creating a course or a group program or something like that, because the results are so powerful and because I do come at it from a different niche of bringing in feminist values, that there may be some potential for me to help other people. And you could probably dig into that and say, Staci, that's not good enough. I need more specifics. But that's my answer right now. It's so much easier to like dig holes in somebody else's stuff than your own, right?
100%, 100%. I run into this all the time with branding as well. It's like there's a deeper story there. There's something else. We haven't got there yet. And it's such a powerful leverage point to bring in somebody to help you with this kind of process.
Yeah.
So I can relate for sure. Oh, amazing. I love that. We're going to get right back to the interview. For the next few seconds, I'm going to share with you my brand clarity collective and how it can help you grow your income and impact. If you're an entrepreneur who feels stuck or uncertain about what makes your brand stand out, then this is for you. The Brand Clarity Collective is a mastermind multiplied by mentorship. It's part online curriculum, part digital mastermind, and it's designed to help you get crystal clear brand clarity so you attract more perfect clients and grow your business. We have a thriving community of entrepreneurs who are all smart and driven. As a member of the collective, you get an all-access pass to all of my best branding courses, as well as access to our private community where you can connect with like-minded entrepreneurs and get feedback and support directly from me on our coaching calls. The Brand Clarity Collective is priced at just $297 per month, and after 6 months, you keep lifetime access to all of the courses. To learn more and to see if it's right for you, head over to my homepage at kayeputnam.com. There's a big section where you can click to learn more. I'll also include the link in the show notes wherever you are listening or watching. All right, let's get back. What do people often get wrong? Like, what are some common mistakes that happen in the strategic planning process?
That's a really good question. If people have come from a corporate environment, what they get wrong initially are those foundational aspects of their mission and the vision. Because like I told somebody I just started working with yesterday, I said, listen, what you see on a business's website for their vision is 1 or 2 sentences. But I guarantee you that CEO has a personal vision for her business that you don't see, and what she wants to be able to accomplish and do, because she is the owner of the business. And as small businesses, we have to understand that we are the CEOs, whether we call ourselves that or not. And so a lot of people will come to me with a vision statement that looks like like you would see on a corporate website. And I understand that. But again, it comes back to that idea of, okay, you as the business owner, what is your vision? And what I like to tell people is your mission is something, and your core values are something that you can put on your website and share with people. But your vision is something that is protected, that you might not share with anybody, that you may share with a significant other or a few people on your team, but it's not something that is out there for everyone, because it's very, very personal to you. And that helps people, I think, get more clarity around that. I think the other thing is that people think they need to be working on all areas of their business all the time. So I had a client say, I want to track my time by how much time I'm spending in each pillar of the business. And I said, well, next month we indicated that this is going to be the month that you really start to push visibility. So we're not going to be looking at client experience, and we're not going to be looking at that trademark that you want to create. And so I think one of the mistakes when it comes to building the plan is that we have to be working on all areas of the business all the time. And that causes us to be fragmented and comes back to that idea of unfinished projects.
I feel like that's one of the most potent benefits that somebody gets with working with somebody like you who's been doing this, who's actually been applying theory in real world businesses for 7 years. Is that right, Staci? 7
That's
years
right. Mm-hmm.
since you started? Yeah. Because, and I've seen this in the branding world as well, like what you see in the textbook, what you see on the corporate websites, what the billion-dollar brands are doing often needs to be translated into these smaller businesses to actually make the exercise and effort practical and usable and a powerful asset for your business.
I mean, and that's exactly right. A corporate billion-dollar business may have a strategic plan for 10 years, and they're doing, big SWOT analysis and all these things. But as a small business, we can take what we want that's good from those learnings and then leave what we don't. And 10 years, I can't think ahead in 10 years in my business. I can't think ahead in 10 years in my life. That's not how my brain works,
Mm-mm.
And so I think sometimes people can think that strategic planning has to be this like 10-year overhaul. And I am working on really specifics for 3 to 6 months and then an overview for the following 6 months. And that is more than enough for most people. And if there are people who want to go out 2 to 3, great. But, and I say that 2 to 3 for like a vision, not so much for the plan. But 10 years, that's not, come on now. We could have another pandemic in 10 years. Who knows what's going to happen, right? Come on now.
Oh my gosh.
No way.
I'm a completely different human than I was 10 years ago. And I hope that I will continue to evolve at a pace where I hardly recognize myself in 10 years. I can't plan for that person yet. I can
That's right.
set them up for success as much as possible right now. But
that's right. 100%.
It's too far.
Yep. I agree for sure.
What symptoms do people experience right before they work with you that tells them that they are ready for this work?
It's funny because sometimes people are hesitant because they say, well, I'm in a mastermind or I'm being coached right now. And is this really going to help me? And the answer is yes. And my clients can attest to that. Is what they are learning in their mastermind or from the book that they're reading, a lot of time isn't being implemented. And we as entrepreneurs, we love learning. And I got into, and in fact, I can talk about this in a second. I have a section in my strategic planning about professional development, but about setting boundaries around professional development. Because like the very fact that you are signing up for, that you're already in a mastermind and that you're hesitant that strategic planning is going to work because you're also reading this book tells me that we need to create some clarity, direction, and a plan so that everything that you're learning can be implemented. Because I have had professional development fatigue that made me feel like an absolute incompetent loser business owner because I kept learning and learning and learning and I didn't implement anything. And so people are ready almost when they think it's not going to work, which sounds awful, but they have these hesitations of like, I'm in a mastermind. I have a business coach, I'm learning all this already. How do we know this is going to work? And my clients can attest to that. And I think the other challenge that people have is that, well, how do I know this is going to work for me? Because I'm a visionary with 1,000 ideas. A strategic plan does not have to stifle your creativity. And in fact, I believe that structure supports more creativity because if you know that X, Y, and Z are in place, you have room to experiment. And if you know that, okay, you're going to hire a contractor to do this one project, well, great. That frees up your time to work on exactly what you want to be working on. And I also think somebody's ready for strategic planning when they are willing to have somebody come into their business and say no. Because I'm going to come from a place of loving candor. And if I know what your vision is and I know what your revenue goals are, and well, I really want to do these 25, I need to work my visibility and I want to do these 25 things. I'm going to say no. No one has space for that. And so it really is about coming in with an open mind, having too many ideas, and knowing that you're going to work with somebody who comes from a place of loving candor to set you up in the right direction.
Yes. I think I've fallen into the trap myself where I think as a protection mechanism, in hindsight, we overextend ourselves in all of those different directions because we're a little afraid of what happens if we actually put our 100% of our focus into creating our vision. Like we say that we want it. Like if that focused energy doesn't work, that feels even more scary than like throwing energy in a bunch of different places. And I think that that's kind of our brain trying to keep us safe by self-sabotaging a little bit. And you're absolutely right. By having somebody that is going to hold you accountable to your vision, that's like a superpower. You get to put your energy where your heart is and make real progress for once. Because I know that too many of us stifle ourselves by spreading ourselves too thin.
That's an interesting way to think about it. It's really hard to go all in sometimes and go, well, what if I spend months on this and it doesn't work? So I appreciate that perspective. That's really insightful.
But like you said earlier, it doesn't mean that we have something etched in stone that we're going to follow for the next 12 months. We get to take the current stimulus or the current data that we're getting and shift if we need to. But that is still a powerful improvement over winging it and throwing spaghetti everywhere.
And that's why I give people their strategic plan. I use ClickUp. I give people a strategic plan in a live document that's movable. So I don't give people a plan on a PDF that then they put on their wall and it never gets used. It is a strategic plan, like I said, that has those drop-down menus that, okay, like what happens, for example, if a really great opportunity comes up and you hadn't planned for this and you do want to do it? Well, great. Maybe you do it. And then the other things get put on hold, but we don't forget about them. And it allows us to pivot and to be agile.
Powerful. Okay. You mentioned putting boundaries on learning, but I am going to ask you a question in the other direction. The people in my orbit love to learn, as many entrepreneurs do. What has been your favorite resource that has impacted your life or business the most? Maybe it's a course, podcast, book. What stands out in your mind as top tier learning material?
For a course, or I would say a certification, it is definitely the Director of Operations certification with the Ops Authority. 100%. I love podcasts. And so, I subscribe to a handful of podcasts. And in terms of books, Traction and Rocket Fuel, or anything that's teaching me about the integrator visionary relationship, are really valuable. I 100% believe in professional development and learning. And so I definitely do not discount that as all. And your listeners are, listening to this show right now. So they're looking to add value to their life, right? I think one of the challenges that we have is reading the books and then not implementing them. And, listening to the podcasts and taking something away from it and not processing the information. Like a lot of times we can binge podcasts like we binge Netflix, and we're not actually processing what we learned from the experts that we trust to teach us. And then I can't say, courses, I love them. I think they're a valuable way to learn when it's not in the cards to work with somebody one-to-one. But for me, it's all about, if we're going to learn, we need to implement and make sure that what we're learning. I think the other thing I will add here, are we learning something we need to be learning, or are we learning something that actually we could delegate to somebody else? Because somebody in my strategic planning, I would have totally forgot this if you wouldn't ask this. Somebody in my strategic planning said, I want to learn how to hire so that when I hire somebody to hire for me, I know they're doing a good job. And I was like, okay, we need to dig into that about obviously there's coming from a place of like bad hiring experiences and lack of trust with contractors, because I can think of 1,000 other things that you could be doing while somebody's hiring for you. And so that is where I'm coming from. This idea of learn what you can learn, what you need to learn, but let's delegate other things as well, if that makes sense.
100%. I have a phrase that's stuck in my mind. I don't know who to attribute it to, but the idea of just in time learning and not learning in advance for things that I am only going to need later. I really try to limit myself of what do I need to learn right now to make a difference in my business or my life right now. I think that might be a frame that is useful for some people. And for those people who would like help implementing and creating a strategic plan, I know that you have a special offer for those that are listening. Can you tell us about it?
I do. I would love to offer your listeners a $250 discount on a strategic planning session with me at any time.
Amazing. That is so generous. Thank you so much. I hope that the people take you up on it. I think that we've talked about how powerful this can be. And to wrap this up, I want to ask if you had the ability to just like wave a magic wand and everybody who is listening to like know something, what do you think that everybody should know or believe or understand?
The first thing that comes to my mind is truly understanding what your revenue and profit goals are and not just shooting from the hip, because a lot of us follow people online that we aspire to be at any level in business. And what I think is missing from the conversation is not understanding operating costs of your business. And some people will say, well, I want to replace my income from my corporate job. Okay. Do you want to replace, are you saying you want to replace, is that like your revenue or is that your bottom line profit? Because they're completely different. And if we know really how much we need to earn to support our lifestyles, that goes into, okay, when we look at service and sales in the strategic planning, do we need to increase your prices? Like what needs to change, right? And then it just trickles down as we go through the plan. So for me, I mean, we've talked about vision and I think we both believe that's important, but when it comes to like actual factual piece of information, it is 100% for me knowing the difference between revenue and profit and having data to back that up.
Yes. I feel like that's such a powerful action step for anybody that is looking for that takeaway. What should I implement from this episode? If you haven't already garnered an idea that you want to dive into, just sitting down with a spreadsheet and figuring out what you want that number to be and why is life-changing. I agree 100% with that. Thank you so much. And where can people find more about you or follow you online? Where do you hang out?
My website is stacihauschild.com, and you can also connect with me on LinkedIn at Staci Hauschild.
Amazing. I will link all of those in the descriptions or show notes wherever you are listening. Staci, thank you so much for sharing your genius, for helping us understand what strategic planning can do, because I feel like that's such a big word. And it was super helpful for me to really dive into the details of the impact that it can have on your business and brand and how it works. I love talking with people whose brains are such an amazing complement to mine and work so differently. I hope you got as much out of that conversation as I did. I am recommitting to my strategic planning, and I hope that some of you, whoever resonated with this episode with Staci, are going to take her up on that incredibly generous offer that she shared at the end of today's episode. Thank you so much for listening. I'll see you in the next episode.